The disaster in the Red Cathedral of Imola was very bitter. Before the qualifying session for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, expectations were not high. Fourth place on the starting grid was seen as a great result, the third row as a placement consistent with what Ferrari can offer today. An hour later, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton walked to the weight checks while the top 10 went out for Q3, all in a surreal silence in the stands and on the famous Passion Hills of Imola. It was clear it would not be a great day. The results from the 3 practice sessions had already excluded Ferrari from the fight for the first 2 rows, but no one could have predicted what happened afterward. At the end of qualifying, Charles Leclerc, as usual, gave the most realistic picture of what is happening at the Italian side. He said that what they saw was the best possible performance and expressed regret. The Monegasque driver added that there was nothing giving him hope for tomorrow and that he believed this was currently the potential of their car. The perfect storm took shape by combining several shortcomings. Charles Leclerc was right when he said the problem was the overall performance of the car. No matter how much they adjusted the balance, there would still be a performance problem. The potential of the SF-25 should have allowed Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton to at least fight for the third row. But here came the second reason that kept the Ferrari duo out of Q3. This weekend at Imola, Pirelli brought the new C6 compound, very close to the C5. The performance difference was estimated at 0.2, which in qualifying proved harder to use than expected. Already in Q1, some drivers improved their lap times using a set of used tires. What emerged was that after the first thermal cycle, the C6 stabilized, effectively approaching the C5, which was the medium compound this weekend. It is no coincidence that in the last Q2 run, Aston Martin sent Alonso and Stroll out on yellow tires, and it was their last-minute entry into the top 10 that excluded the 2 Ferrari cars, who had left the pits for the final Q2 run on new C6 tires. At the Maranello pit wall, they did not correctly interpret the track evolution, and without a perfect execution, the Ferrari SF-25 single-seater does not have the potential to easily pass into Q3, as was clearly seen today at Imola. Frédéric Vasseur commented that the problem they paid for was linked to the tire window as well as the car's potential. If they had done everything right, they probably would have finished 4th and 5th. This means execution was not good, but neither was the potential. Thousands of fans were there to support them, and they failed to give them a good result, so they cannot be satisfied. It was a very difficult day for them, and as it happened in Miami, they failed to improve their times with new tires, so much so that their fastest lap in Q2 remained the one set on the used set from Q1. Tire management was strange for everyone today, but it seemed to have affected them more than others. Frédéric Vasseur concluded by saying that tomorrow they would have to try to understand what they can do. Although on Friday they showed a good race pace, it is not easy to overtake here. They expect a challenging afternoon and will probably have to take some risks, especially strategically. Tonight, they will focus on this to get the most out of tomorrow for their fans. The French manager's view is textbook, but to understand the negative impact that today's performance had on many people in red, Charles Leclerc's words fit better. He went beyond predictions looking toward tomorrow's race and also spoke about the upcoming weekend in Monaco. The Ferrari team boss said that he thought it would be the same situation and that he believed the Monte Carlo track would expose all the weaknesses of their car, making it another very difficult weekend for them. For now, we are unfortunately seeing an embarrassment, yet another for Ferrari in Formula One. The issue is again about tires, because despite Ferrari boasting the expert Loic Serra, a theoretical tire expert, the SF-25 shows no intention of activating them. It's a shame because the balance wasn't bad, but failing to get the necessary grip means any Williams can easily beat you by half a second. The situation is quite tragic, as overtaking at Imola is far from easy. Considering that in Friday's race pace simulation Ferrari performed quite well, starting so far back on the grid will be very limiting for their objectives. Not to mention that Imola is the home Grand Prix, and the disappointment suffered by the Scuderia's supporters is hard to digest. Tomorrow is another day, and motorsport's highest category has taught us that anything can happen. However, imagining a positive scenario seems rather difficult at the moment. It's frustrating to say the least, because the Maranello car had the potential to run a good race given the pace shown in the second free practice session. All that remains is to swallow yet another disappointment, knowing that the road to improvement is long. The phrase unexpressed potential is often used, and perhaps this afternoon, considering the problem with poor tire management, that definition fits perfectly. However, it is quite frustrating that this situation can't be resolved. The Italian team never does things halfway. Either it destroys the tires or it can't activate them. A scenario repeating itself for many years now. Will it continue much longer? In the final part of the qualifying session, there were Haas and Sauber cars equipped with Ferrari engines. A pitiful result indeed. All weekend we analyzed how the SF-25 was in the fight for second place. So let's try to understand what happened. There were some problems, such as a certain degree of understeer, which made it difficult to hit certain apexes. Nothing new, as we have pointed out since the start of the year, as explained yesterday. Today, most of the percentage gap the Italian car suffers is due to the tires. These, we underline, are currently the most important parameter, and much of the final result depends on their behavior. In the final free practice session, Charles Leclerc gave a very interesting comment. The Monegasque complained about a huge split between front and rear. To bring the tire up to temperature, it must be heated both superficially and in the bulk, that is, in the inner zone. Heating the surface is relatively easy, but the challenge for all teams is also to reach the inside. Especially in the early parts of the lap, the SF-25 fails to reach the required target at the front while it does at the rear. This creates a great thermal asynchrony between the axles. The new Pirelli C6 compound played a fundamental role in this scenario at the 4.909 km Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari. We are talking about a new compound that no one really understood well, and on which, before this weekend, no one spent time running laps. Every tire has a different range in which it expresses its maximum grip level. Moreover, you need to understand how to warm it up during the outlap, exactly what Ferrari failed to grasp. So much so that with used tires they performed better than with new ones. This means they struggled too much to activate them, and there is no way around it. Consider that Mercedes mounted the yellow compound for Q3. Surely Ferrari's choice to use the soft compound has reasons behind it, but objectively the Mercedes W16 cars made the better, more practical decision. It seems that Ferrari just never gets there. Tomorrow's Emilia Grand Prix gets underway at 15:00 Central European Summer Time and is run over 63 laps, which is the equivalent of 309.049 kilometers. Obviously, it is not going to be an easy afternoon, given that, despite the SF-25 single-seater demonstrating promising pace on Friday, overtaking at Imola is very difficult. The Maranello team will prepare every last detail with the aim of bringing home as many points as possible.